Hi, everyone. Yes, everyone starts meowing and coming out. Hello. I was reading the Bible and came across something else interesting, but I had wanted to come on about another topic and so on and so forth. But anyway, let me start with J.D. Farag quoted, and I'm going to go over a lot of verses we know. Like I was saying yesterday in that video, there's some, or day before, so many verses we really know. And then I wanted to get into that, what I had said yesterday about lordship salvation, which I don't even really know what it means, but it makes sense. But it doesn't mean you're not saved if Jesus is not Lord of your life. It just means you're in trouble, probably. Also, I said about predestination. Now, then I was saying, oh, well, that can open a can of worms because, well, actually, God predestined the Jews. Yeah, he did. So, but anyway, J.D. Farag quoted a verse, Genesis 50, Genesis 50, verse 20. And that's Joseph talking to his brothers saying, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, to save many people alive. Now, that's the Jews, right? Now, then you go to the verse we read all the time. We've read it. Oh, well, no, wait. Then it reminded me, of Matthew 13:13, which we've read a lot. Now, this is the Jewish Bible, and I'll read you something interesting out of their glossary, maybe, if I remember, if this isn't too long. It's about God's calendar. So, remember, I had said that, and I'm not fond of how they've got the name, first of all, right in the middle of the page, so you can't really do it on the edge. And then I don't like it when they blend the numbers in with the sentence. I'd rather them be. So anyway, and then this chapters, you can barely find the chapters. So I'll try to find it here in this Jewish Hebrew Bible, which is from the good texts, because this Bible was written by Christians, actually Messianic Jews and Christians, back in, I don't know, I need to hold this spot, so I can't look right now. So 13:13, and okay. So Genesis 50:20. You meant it for harm, but God meant it for good, to save many people alive. Same thing here in Matthew 13:13, where Jesus is quoting here. He says, I am speaking to them in parables because of this, because although they see, they do not see, and although they hear, they do not hear, and they do not understand. Verse 14, and the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled to them, comma, the one saying, comma, quote, to perceive by hearing, you will hear and you will not understand, and seeing, you will see and will not see or understand, comma, verse 15, for the heart of this people has been made dull. Okay, so he's still quoting Isaiah. Yeah, he's quoting, this is Jesus quoting, but they don't put his words in red in here, but I know that this is Jesus because I've already read it out of another Bible. So he's quoting Isaiah 6:9 and 10 to the disciples, explaining to them why he's speaking in parables so that they won't understand. Because it was already prophesied in Isaiah, the Old Testament, that they're not gonna, God is gonna close their ears and eyes. So I was kind of on a new revelation there, that because of 1 Timothy 6:15 says that, I can read it out of here, it says that God has already appointed the time for the rapture. And God already knew Adam and Eve would sin, and Jesus would come to save humanity. And then he knew the Jews would screw up. Okay, so when JD quoted that verse out of Genesis 50:20, you meant it for harm, and we love that verse, right? We always love that verse. It reminded me of a couple of others. So it reminded me then of the Matthew 13:13, but also, okay, so this is Matthew 13:13. I don't know how this fits in, and I can finish reading it, but and then 16, he says, and blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I say to you that many prophets and righteous people desired to see what you are seeing, but they did not see, and to hear what you are hearing, but they did not hear. Okay, but I found in Luke an additional verse from Matthew 50:20. I keep thinking it's another one, but it's really not. It is Luke 21:24, but that's not the verse that came to my mind when he quoted that. But in a way, Matthew 13:13 did come to my mind because God closed their ears and eyes until the fullness of the Gentiles to save many people alive. Just like in Luke 21:24, I ran across it. I wasn't even looking to cross-reference or anything. But I had also thought of 2 Samuel 16:11 and 12, where King David was being cursed by his enemies, Absalom, his son, and their cronies, and they were cursing him, and King David's armor bearer said to David as they were walking along, he said, do you want me to kill them? They're like sitting here being here cursing you. You're the king. And King David said, you can read it for yourself in whatever translation or many. It's in 2 Samuel 16:11 and 12. And King David said, no, let him curse. Maybe God, actually I might read it in here because it's worded very nice and interestingly, that is more, opens you up more to something. So he says, let him curse. Maybe God will look upon me and bless me. See? So cursings cause blessings. I've said this early on. So you can always say, let him curse, let him curse. So then in Luke 21:24, we read this all the time, but this is what I see now. It says, and they will fall by the edge of the sword, and they will be led away captive among all heathens, is what this translation says. Now, I've said in another video where in some parts of the Bible it uses Gentiles, sometimes heathens, sometimes Pharisees, and maybe something else. But they are in different verses in the New Testament, where one verse will say heathens and one will say some. So this one is using heathens, and it says in King James either nations or Gentiles. Okay, so they're saying in this translation from the, all right, so, and they will fall by the edge of the sword, and they will be led away captive among all the heathens, and Jerusalem will be trampled by heathens until the times of the heathens would be fulfilled. And then there's maybe some quotes. My eyes are getting a little better because the worms are dying, I guess. Genesis 48:19 and Daniel 12:7. Oh, and more. Romans 11:25. See note on Romans 11:25. So, to me, this tells me, and it is true, it's a fact, you can find it all throughout the Old Testament, Israel is at war all the time. I've ran across some last night last night in Numbers and Deuteronomy, they're always at war, but God is always telling them to go to war. This is what I wanted to scream out on the some of this news. I'm like, or even Christians, it's like war has been since day one, and God is in it. God, many times we've known the story about Gideon. God said, go to war with them. Many times in the Old Testament, they're going to war, and God is telling them. Many times they, maybe not many, but once they went to war and didn't ask first. Did not ask first. I think King David a couple of times said, should I go to war with them? And God said, yes, you certainly will. And God is with them. It will say. And God even tells them how to do it. Just like in the Psalms, I teach your hands to war and your fingers to fight. So what I see here in this verse, and it's in context. I'm not reading it out of context, but you can go and it's about the end times. So, but if you take that one verse, it's still true. I'm going to scoot this up. It's still true. It's still true. The Jews are blinded for our good. And they're always going to be rejected, either until the end, even until the rapture, after the rapture, till the very end. They are going to be trodden down by the heathen. And I knew there was a Bible verse in here since October 7th, even before. And I think Don Stewart quoted it once. I was like, yeah, that's the verse I was thinking of. Well, I don't remember it anymore, but it's basically is a verse, and it's out of the Old Testament, and it does say that Israel is going to be hated forever until the end. And it's just how he did it. But we, we're, with, what's the verse? With you have great responsibility if you have a great calling. And they're chosen. God has given them supernatural strength and sanity to endure all this. He has given them supernatural hope. He is, everything. There is not one human being on this earth that has been through what they've been through that are not a Jew and could handle it with such grace and strength as they have. We would have done offed ourselves by now, And by the way, suicide, it's been going on since day one as well, just like prostitution and child trafficking. And they were falling on their swords if they got captured. They're like, I'm not going to get captured by these. But anyway, okay, I digress. So then that he does that to save many alive. They curse and they'll get blessed. And they get cursed, they'll get blessed. Okay, so what else was I? Okay, trodden down. There, that's Luke 21:24. They'll be trodden down by the Gentiles until the fullness of the Gentiles. And who are the Gentiles? The Gentiles are anyone who is not a Jew. They're heathens also, some of us are heathens, I guess. Okay, then I wrote 2 Kings 17:41 again, because I had found that one time. That reminded me. Okay, if you went back and you read 2 Kings 17, I don't know where it starts, maybe verse 24 from my memory, where the lions are eating them and such. Okay, and then at the very end, it says, but they do this still today. Still today, they're doing it. And we as well, where they're mixing religion and paganism. They're mixing stuff. So you read it. It's right there. 2 Kings, did I say that? Yeah, 2 Kings 17, starting in 25. And they started adding pagan things into the temple. And they do it still to this day. So do us Christians. We're always mixing things without us even realizing it. I mean, honestly. So this reminded me of the verse, they honor me with their mouths, but their hearts are far from me. Because that's what that was. That's what they were doing. They were honoring him in formality, whether you want to call it formality or religion or whatever, but basically they were influenced is what it was. I don't, just like when a Christian might be influenced by the outside and they bring a little bit of it in their life or in the church and not even realizing it because you're a product of your environment. And even this Bible was saying somewhere in the footnote that they did it unknowingly, unintentionally. And there are sometimes, though, that they were doing it intentionally. But, okay, so there, in 2 Kings 17. Okay, then Deuteronomy 23, 4 and 7 is blessed. Oh, I loved that. Yeah, so Deuteronomy is so interesting in a couple of places. Is it 23? So I'll just read right here. An Ammonite or Moabite will not enter the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation. They will not enter the congregation of the Lord forever. Okay, and I'm asking Jesus, I'm like, well, this isn't the topic, but I'm like, you said 10th generation, and now you're saying forever. I mean, I think we'll read the Bible maybe flatly, but I think what he's saying here is he's basically saying it in a pissed off kind of way. He's like, they're not going to enter not even their 10th generation. They're never going to enter the house of the Lord forever. Not even the 10th generation. They're never going to, in other words, that's what I think he's saying. So, and he'll tell you why. He's like, because they did not meet you with bread and with water on the way when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired Balaam, the son of Beor of Pethor of Aram Naharaim, against you to curse you. Nevertheless, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam. Now we can read that over and over and not really think much of it, but to me, you know what that says to me last night? That says to me that, of course, the enemy can't do anything. I already knew that. He has to ask first. He has to be allowed. Unless you in your free will willingly choose wrong and you choose the enemy's path, even when you are saved or in between your walk with him, relationship, so on. God can, if it's because you did it to yourself, God can still stop that attack, but out of mercy, but he does not have to. But here, to me, what this says to me is, that the enemy came to curse. And any of these curses, by the way, those aren't real gods. They're real demons. But to those people, they are their gods. That's why when I was reading out of 2 Kings 17 that one day, it had a small g for God, because I didn't click it at the moment that it was them speaking. The pagans were speaking. So they said their God, but really they were talking about Jehovah God. But because they were the ones quoting and speaking, they had it's a little g. Okay, so then this says, but the Lord did not listen to Balaam. Isn't that cool? People or the enemy can put things against you or try, or the enemy can work through the free will of somebody else and hurt us. But the Holy Spirit can protect us. from the pain or the hurt or the harm, or that God, the Holy Spirit, can make it up to us as well. But also, God can prevent that person from even being around you to open their mouth against you, perhaps, or do anything against you, perhaps. But there's just so many things, scenarios God can do. But the fact remains that God would not listen to Balaam. And I had never thought of it that way. It says, but the Lord your God turned the curse into a blessing for you because the Lord your God loved you. That's Genesis 50, verse 20. Turn the curse into a blessing because he loved you. And this was in Deuteronomy. It was already marked. I have some things marked, and I think I was just kind of skimming through this last night. And then I was seeing things that I was already meditating on. And then I got more things because I had already had it in my Bible, like in Isaiah, there was something, wherever that is. So anyway, isn't that cool? So it says, nevertheless, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam, but the Lord your God turned the curse into a blessing for you because the Lord your God loved you. You will not seek, this is scary, you will not seek their peace or their prosperity all the days forever. Now, we might think, oh, that's horrible, but no, all that really means is just leave them alone. Don't try to be nice. Don't try to save them, I guess. Don't bless them with riches. I don't know. It says, you will not seek their peace. Don't fight for them. You will not seek their peace or their prosperity all the days, all of your days, forever. Now, there's verses in Jeremiah in 2 places where it says, do not pray for these people. Jeremiah, I want my people to feel the hurt. I'm putting the hurt on them. I'm going to put the hurt on you. And I want them to feel the hurt. I want them to feel the pain. Don't pray for them. So, okay, so here I had written last night those. Then here in 23, okay, so I don't even know who the Ammonite and the Moabites are, even if they exist today still. But if they do, I don't know what their life is like. Maybe they're the Gazans that are calling themselves Palestinians, and they're Arabs, and they're certain kinds of Arabs. I don't know. But I'm just saying as an example. So when you go to camp against your enemies, this is verse 10 of 23. So I was thinking of this verse also last night. So I went to look it up. And this verse, because I've always loved it, but I didn't take it out of context necessarily, but he's basically talking about pooping and peeing in the camp. Your toilet's going to be outside. He's basically talking about the toilet here. He's talking about literal cleanness, literal cleanliness. Just like if you're near a dead body, or you touched a dead body, or you had to bury a dead body, you're unclean now. You have to go get in the mikvah, right? So that's what he was saying here. Go into the mikvah. But he's explaining that when you go to camp against your enemies, war, they're always at war. Only with Solomon, I think, not only, but maybe another one, there was peace. There was peace for many years. They were at war a lot. And so when you go to camp against your enemies, then keep from every wicked thing. If there is among you any man that is not clean by reason of uncleanness that happens to him at night, maybe he's got to pee, then he will go abroad out of the camp. He will not come within the camp, but it will be when evening comes. But it will be when evening comes, he will immerse in water, and when the sun is down, he will come into the camp. Okay, there was something else. So verse 15, for the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp to deliver you and to give up your enemies before you. Therefore, your camp will be holy, so he sees no unclean thing in you and turns away from you. You will not deliver to his mouth. Okay, so basically this is under those, I think there's over 600 commandments that none of us can keep. This is sort of talking like about that. It's cleanliness, it's what to do. I think it said something, but anyway, I always liked that verse about when the angel of the Lord, when you are at war, when you're in warfare against the enemy, because God allowed it so you're not flabby, and so that he can teach your hands to war and your fingers to fight. So when you are at war, when you go to camp against your enemy, because look, we're living amongst the animals. I'm seeing a bird out there. The enemy's turf here. This is the world. We're in the enemy's domain. The only thing going for us is God on our side. And if we don't know him, his word, we're not going to know how to fight. And he tells you to put your armor on. So yeah, don't ever just don't ever get too comfortable. So when you go to camp against your enemies, then was that what I was doing for the Lord? Yeah. So when you go to camp against, sometimes you got to camp out for days, months, years. You're camping out against your enemies. Then keep from every wicked thing. Just toe the line here. Don't go, oh, well, I'll just party one night. Who would do that anyway if Jesus is your Lord? He's not only your Savior, he's also your Lord. And then you could also put Luke 21:36 with that. I don't know what that was, but let me look. I always have odd cross-references. The Bible's cross-references never help me. I like my own. That I'll find, but just by reading. And you must continually be watchful at every time. Oh, this is that verse, isn't it? Luke 21, I'll just do 36. And you must continually be watchful at every time or every season, asking that you would prevail to escape all these things that are going to happen and to stand before the Son of Man. See, that's a verse we all know and quote. Oops, let me help you, Bob. That's a verse we all know and quote, but it's worded differently in the King James. And I heard a pastor explain that once that makes more sense, and this makes more sense too. You can look that up yourself. So now I lost my spot. But that's an example. When you are watching and praying, you're drawing nigh to God. He's going to draw nigh to you. You are keeping your camp clean when you're going against the enemy. Or in the King James, I think it says when the host of heaven, God's host of heaven goes forth against your enemies for you. It says keep yourself clean. There's other verses. Cleaning the vessel, I've talked about that verse before, wherever it is. Vessels of honor and dishonor, that's in Romans, I think. And a clean vessel is the one like in a house. There are many vessels of honor and vessels of dishonor. And then it tells you if you're a vessel of dishonor and you don't want to be, then clean it up. Like I was saying in the video, the examples of cleaning it up. Now, we can take baby steps because you're never going to be perfect. But yeah, Bobs, go ahead. Oh, am I opening the door for no reason, Dad? At least it's not hot anymore. So, yeah, Manny, don't be a trickster here. I know, he's yawning now. Bob, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to hurry here. I think I got a little bit is all. Okay, so basically, the predestination, yeah. God predestined the Jews. And the word predestined is in the Bible. So you can't dispute that. Here, Bobs, go ahead. You can't dispute that. It's in the Bible. So if it's in the Bible, whether it's being misunderstood, misconstrued, misinterpreted, all of that, that's not the Bible's problem, And, how I said yesterday that, and it may be another, that this woman hated God, but yet she took a trip to heaven. I mean, hello? Why does he do it to some people that hate God? I always loved Romans 10:20. I revealed myself to those who didn't seek me, and I never can remember it, but Romans 10:20. And then also, so okay, so maybe that was all. If you can connect all those together, is how, when something is said, or when I'm reading, and then something I'm reading speaks another verse to me, and it ties in some stuff, and it might answer some questions, or I'll question God. Like, well, wait a minute, you said this over here. What? And then he'll just explain stuff. It's so cool. So and then when I was just reading wherever it was before I lost my place when I had to get up, darn. How about I'll just read you the verses. And and I don't think I put each verse with each chapter, like maybe it was separate, so you can just read the whole chapter, but it's Luke 21:24. Israel will always be at war until the fullness of the Gentiles. Now, I don't know if that's even in the trib. That I don't think the tribulation has anything to do with Israel being trodden down anymore. Right now, they're being trodden down because of us. The fullness. See, that's another. The fullness. Okay, so God knows when the fullness is. So Luke 21:24, 2 Kings 17:17. Okay, and then with that one, maybe think of the verse wherever it is. They honor me with their mouths, but their hearts are far from me, because at the end of the chapter, that's basically what they're doing still to this day. And so do we. And it is only because of the Jews that we're grafted in. Okay? That their eyes and ears are closed. It's only, now we can still evangelize them, but you never want to beat them over the head with the Bible, ever. If anything, it's just by your actions, your testimony, your disciple, this and that, if you're near them. Okay, then Deuteronomy 23, verses 4-7. God blessed because of a curse. It happened in 2 Samuel 16:11 and 12. Then I have Matthew 13:13. God knew their eyes and ears would be closed. I don't know where in the Bible that it might say that, but I think I knew that it said somewhere in the Bible that, number one, the Jews would be hated for all time. I knew that was in there somewhere, and I found it. It's, Matthew 13:13. No, well, Luke. So, okay. And number two, okay, never mind. I'm losing my train of thought because Benny's staring at me over here. Benny! Based off. Okay. Okay, and then Genesis 50:20. He used to snooze away with these. Now he's like, I'm sick of this. Okay, Genesis 50:20. And then vessels of honor and dishonor. You can Google that, say vessels of honor and dishonor, Bible verse. There's Deuteronomy 23:15 and Luke 21:36. I'm sorry, I hated this video to be so unorganized like this. These buttons are too shiny. Okay, numbers. Marked, also recounted in Deuteronomy 3. God instructs Israel on war, killing. Yeah, God, I get so sick, and it's mostly these demonic groups. I understand that. The demonic groups that rise up and they blame Israel. But I'm still even sick of, Trump says, hurry this up. Well, they can't hurry it up until you hurry it up and help them out, right? I try to keep myself in check because I know God, this is God's timing anyway. But in Numbers 31, I think that's what the 31 is there for. Oh, but wait, somebody just got that number not too long ago. So I wonder if this is, let me go back to Numbers and see if that's the one. But if that's why I wrote 31 right there. Because that reminds me of the number 31. Yeah, it's Numbers chapter 31. Somewhere in Numbers 31. The very part of it, war against Midian. So they were always at war. And it's not a new thing, and they're trodden down by the Gentiles until the fullness of the Gentiles, and they're rejected by all nations because of the fullness of the Gentiles. Where's the verse that says they're enemies for your sake? Something like that. Okay, so, and then I have 1 Samuel 12:24. That's a good verse. Only serve the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider how great things he hath done for you. And then I wrote Job and Peter, they got sifted. And it wasn't an illegal attack. They were fine, and Jesus even knew before Peter did it that he was going to reject him and fail. But he warned him that he would be sifted. Now Job had no warning at all, but see, neither one did anything wrong. And okay, so then JD, when I said something about he was thinking differently than I was one, and then what I was saying once, and then even after I said it, before he even, and it's true, I said something like, sometimes God even gives us tests that he knows we're going to fail. And I really didn't mean it like in a bad way, but it's just for the experience, right? He knows we're going to fail it, just like Peter failed that one. Well, and Jesus already knew ahead of time he was going to fail. But the verse he quoted, and I can't, and it's true. God will never put more on you, something like, maybe these are two different verses, but God will never put more on you than you can bear, because he will always give you a way of escape. And that's true. That is also true. I think that deals with temptation, which is different to me than getting a legal attack. There's no such thing really as an illegal attack, because either you caused it, invited it, or God allowed it. So it's basically a legal attack because we're in a war and we're not in heaven here. Okay? Nothing around here is perfect, including us. And it's just, that's why we have armor. And so, yeah. All right. So I'll be done with that. And then I'll say, I love this. Psalm 46, verse 5. God is in the midst of her. God is in the midst of her. She shall, what else is it? She shall not be greatly moved. And then okay. So that, one time I was commenting that verse a lot, not that one, but I was commenting a lot, Psalm 25:22, and I was writing it out, which I don't normally do. And it was usually on a Jewish channel, like Jewish news and the clips. And I was always quoting this verse. And one time somebody got on there all snot ass and said, it's he, not her. And I thought, whatever, okay. So then I corrected it. Well, so yes, Psalm 25:22 says, redeem Israel, O God, out of all his troubles. His troubles. Never mind. You can look it up yourself. Okay, then Psalm 46:5 says, God is in the midst of her. So is it him, her? Is it both? It's it. Some versions say it. Not it as in God is in the midst of it, in the midst of Israel. It. I don't know. So Psalm 46:5, and this is good for us women, but this is this version. There is a river, the streams of which will make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling place of the Most High. Okay. Yeah, this version also has the numbers. I noticed another area where my Bible will say verse 9, but in this Bible, it's in verse 10. So I think they're breaking it up a little bit differently. But like I said, this is from the original. And it's not the crap one. And the NLT, New Living Translation, is also the best translation. So if you want to read that verse that says, oh, watch and pray that you may be counted worthy to escape. That verse is not saying that watching and praying, if you're caught, it's, I know it sounds like that, but if you just bend your mind a little to the left and back, you'll understand it a different way. Kind of like spare the rod and spoil the child could also be translated by a kid. Well, Dad, the Bible says spare the rod and spoil me. Don't hit me, don't spank me, spoil me. So if you reread that and it says watch and pray that you may be found worthy to escape, it's, which basically if you're watching and praying, like I said, it's going to draw you and he draws nigh to you. So of course you're going to be abiding in the vine, but it's not meaning that that's what's saving you. That's what's going to save you. And you're saying, oh, please count me worthy, God. Am I worthy? That's not what it's saying. Read it out of the New Living Translation. And you can read it out of here too. But instead, I'm going to read. So Psalm 25:20, no, Psalm 46, 46. Oh my goodness, I'm such a mess. Okay, so they got it in verse 6. And it says, God is in the midst. Oh, it says it's. God is in its midst. But in the King James, it says, God is in the midst of her. She shall not be greatly moved. God will help. And God will help her. And that right early, I think is King James. Well, here they're saying, God is in the midst. It will not be moved. God will help at the approach of morning. Okay. Now, so, all right. And if y'all want to feel touched or led to look at any of that, because if you just think of verses that are very common, or like maybe God will speak to you some new truth in that. This is why, like, the books can be opened all the time. And anyway, does anybody want to hear about the, maybe Benny has calmed down here. This is the glossary. I'll just show you now that I got two hands. Maybe what year? 2011, copyright by Reverend William J. Morford, published in the United States of America by, actually, I think this was, so it's the One New Man Bible.com. And I think I got Revealing Jewish Roots and Power. But there is another Jewish Bible that American lady, I think she's married to a Jewish man. She might be Jewish herself, and they're Christians, and they also have a Bible version from Hebrew that she wanted to write because she was trying to explain it to her children, and she wrote a Bible not just for kids, but it helps the adults and everybody. So here's Jewish calendar. This is what they say. Is based on the phases of the moon, meaning that the beginning of each month coincides with the appearance of the new moon. This lunar calendar, which means moon, lunar, this lunar calendar has 12 months of 29 or 30 days, with about 354 days in a year. Leap year thus comes often, at least every third year, and sometimes after just 2 years. Babas, wait. In the 4th century AD, Hillel II established a fixed calendar based on mathematical and astronomical calculations. This calendar, still in use, standardized the length of months and the addition of months over the course of a 19-year cycle, so that the lunar calendar realigns with the solar years Adar 2. Oh, wait a minute. Did I skip? Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, you guys. This is kind of long. Anyway. Lunar calendar realigns with the solar years. Adar 2 is added in the 3rd, 6th, 8th, 11th, 14th, 17th, and 19th years of the cycle. October 2nd, 1997 began a new cycle in Jewish year 5758. Before this schedule was set, the leap year was determined each year by examining the barley crop on the 1st of Adar. If the crop was not going to be ready to harvest in 2 weeks, then a second month of Adar was called for, because sorry, I don't know why I can't read in a straight line. And we kind of know some of this. This is God's calendar, but I mean, I haven't read this. I had it marked, but probably for this kingdom thing. But then a second month of Adar was called for, because the barley harvest was needed for the first fruits of unleavened bread. Also, the spring equinox always fell in the month of Adar. The only holiday in Adar is Purim, celebrating the book of Esther, and in a leap year that is celebrated in 2nd Adar to keep its proper perspective 4 weeks before Passover. Purim as a feast exposes persecution, with Haman representing those trying to destroy the Jewish people, as Esther 9:24, because Haman, the son of Hamadath, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them. Now, see, why won't God just destroy the Haggagites? No. He's like having them fight them all the time. For life. For time immemorial. He's having them fight off these enemies. He doesn't destroy them. Because we got to fight. So destroy the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. At Purim, the book of Esther is read to recount God's miraculous works that saved the Jewish people from certain death. Okay, I'm not going to... Okay, I also wanted to say, I am an airhead, so I was making some Persian dish when everybody was like really hating Iran at the moment, and yeah, I understand that the regime is bad, but I love the people. I love the Middle Eastern type people. I'm sure they're very similar. I know my ex-boyfriend, who was back when I was like 18, 19, 20, and some of 21. One of his friends was Turkey. And I mean, he might have had some Iranian in him. I don't know. That's just what they tell us. But, yeah, those Middle Eastern people, you know, everybody loves the Mediterranean food. Well, that's where it's from, really. I mean, in these stores, they try to kind of hide their ethnicity because of, but I can kind of tell accents. So sometimes if they are a Persian accent, I can tell. But even if I ask, they might lie and say, no, I'm from Iraq or something. But anyway, so, but they call it Mediterranean food. You know, they don't want to give away that they're Iranian because they know since 9/11 or whatever. So the new year of the Jewish calendar begins on the first of the month, Tishri, the 7th month, which comes sometime in late August to mid-September. Wait a minute. Yeah. It is called Rosh Hashanah, meaning New Year. But the holy day is the day of remembrance. This is the anniversary of the creation of the world and the day that is set aside to remember all that God has done for each one of us. It is a call to repentance and preparation for Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Even though the year begins 6 months earlier with Tishri, the months are counted from Nisan, because when God spoke to Moses commanding the Passover and Exodus, he said this month will be the beginning of the month for you, beginning of months for you. It will be the first month of the year for you. Speak to the whole congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th day of this month, every man will take a lamb for them according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. The natural assumption is that this means the 1st of Nisan is New Year's Day. Not so. There is a scriptural basis for the new year at Rosh Hashanah in Exodus 23:16, the feast of ingathering, Sukkot, in the end of the year, and 34:22, the feasts of ingathering at the year's end, identify it as such. No matter when you celebrate New Year's, Passover at sundown, and the anniversary of Yeshua, Last Seder, Last Supper. I'm not reading this correctly. That was a period. The Feast of First Fruits starts at sundown the 2nd day after Passover and is the anniversary of his resurrection. This day starts what Scripture calls the counting of the Omer, 7 weeks plus 1 day until Shavuot. The Greek name for Shavuot is Pentecost, meaning 50. days. And the English name is weeks. The meaning of the Hebrew word Shavuot. So I just kind of had bad timing with that Persian food. I wasn't thinking, but I mean, I love Persian people. And anyway, so I guess those are just what I think are new epiphanies to me, along with some old, and also good things to meditate and ponder upon, and not to relearn, but like things to think about and pray about could be like, what does this predestination stuff mean? What is this lordship salvation? Because to me, if it means that if Jesus is not your Lord, then you're not saved from eternal hell. See, that's the word salvation means. Anytime you really read it about that, I mean, God saves us all day long. But when people are saved, are you saved? I mean, we don't need saving from Jesus Christ. We need saving from hell, from away from Jesus Christ, right? We need saving from hell. That's what it means. So, if it's lordship salvation, that means that if you happen to be like King David one day and you fall away, and or you make your bed in hell, it means it means your flesh was your Lord that day, or maybe for a month or years on end. Yourself is your Lord, something else is your Lord, but you were saved as a kid from eternal hell. But you did not make him your Lord. Maybe you didn't know how. Maybe you never learned. Maybe you fell away before you learned how to make him your Lord. It doesn't mean you're no longer saved. So if lordship salvation means that you're not saved from eternal hell, then no. But this is why I am a firm believer in the good servant, bad servant. If you're not abiding in the vine, if Jesus isn't your Lord and he's only your Savior, you're going to get left behind in the trib. My only question to that is, because that's just how I see it, what other reason for the good servant and bad servant parables? But the only thing I still to this day never hear taught, never heard it even mentioned, God, not a peep out of him for me on this subject, but the rapture is a one-time event. And we know the Catholics wrote our Bibles, so they say purgatory, right? I'm wondering if some purgatory is happening. Okay, so don't freak out. I'm not a purgatory believer. I'm saying they wrote our Bible. And if they believe in that, they might have hidden some things from us. I know they screwed and twisted it all up and mangled it and everything too as well. But my question has always been, this rapture is a one-time event. And those of us alive and remain, and the dead in Christ, abiding in him when they died, they weren't lukewarm, backslidden, got it? Will rise. Well, what about because when we are dead, that verse, absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, right? So all the ones who aren't saved from hell, are they in hell then? But all the ones saved from hell, but they're lukewarm, or Jesus isn't their Lord, and they died before the rapture, okay, they go to heaven, I know. I know they do. I'm sure they don't go to hell. I mean, I've seen some near-death experiences where they do. Um, okay, I'm getting off on something I probably can't. So anyway, I've already talked about this anyway, and nobody cares. Uh, literally, because nobody talks about it. But I'm just wondering about all those 2,000 years worth of lukewarm, backslidden. What is my arm doing? Weird lines. Lukewarm, backslidden people. Jesus isn't their Lord. Uh, False humility, false religion. They're really saved, but they're saved from eternal hell. That's what salvation means. Jesus saved you from eternal hell, and no one can pluck you out of his hands. And there's no fake. There is, okay, so anyway, I'd like to know what happened to the 2,000 years worth of people if there's going to be the ones lukewarm spewed out of his mouth. And like I've said before, in the tribulation, there are no lukewarm. You got to be hot or you got to be cold. You got to take the mark or you got to not take the mark. There's only two. There's no lukewarm to spew out of his mouth. So if you're lukewarm, it happens before the trib. So if you're spewed out of his mouth, well, what about all the 2,000 years worth of people who have died in that state? Lukewarm, backslidden. They're not, Jesus isn't their Lord. I know they're in heaven, but what is we're going to get the rapture. But, so if the lukewarm and they're spewed out of his mouth so they don't get raptured, and they're going to go through a trauma, a tribulation that has never been and never will, never again will be happening on this earth once in a lifetime, just like the rapture is once in a lifetime. That tribulation is once in a lifetime. Why do those lukewarm that are spewed out, why do they have to suffer so heinously compared to the ones that just died? It's not wet out here. Compared to the ones dying in that state. And I don't think they are suffering tribulation because they died in lukewarmness, right? Well, this is what I wonder about the purgatory thing. Maybe some of these testimonies where they went to hell, but they were saved. Or maybe all of us will suffer just a little bit of hell. And we also already know that there is no time. Time is only created for earth and being a human. So in heaven and hell, there is no time. I've heard testimonies of that too. This woman thought she was in hell. She knew exactly how long it was. I think she said 40 years. Maybe she said 400. So I always wondered, and I think there are Bible verses about degrees of hell, something to that effect. So maybe the Catholics have something right when they talk about some purgatory, to where if you're lukewarm or backslidden, you are going to suffer a little bit of hell before you get to go to heaven. Because remember this also, the 5 unwise virgins, they tell them, go buy yourself some oil. Well, by the time they bought it and came back, they were locked out. They're going to go through hellfire, suffering. Now, go match that up with Revelation, wherever it is, because that's what I thought of. I was like, Jesus, the verse in Revelation that says, go buy you gold that is refined in the fire. Basically, if you don't suffer with Jesus Christ as a human, you won't reign with him. You have to be a partaker. You have to be. You have to suffer for his name's sake. He says, blessed are those who suffer. Blessed are those who are this, that. Read them all. So if you think you want to have like this skating through life, Christian life, forget it. If you haven't suffered, so in the trib, those people are going to have to suffer like gold refined in the fire. That's how he did it. like the 5 wise or unwise. You can read it again yourself. They're going to have to suffer for not having enough oil. It is the price of being a follower. And if you want to skip out on that part of the prize, you're going to get it. No matter what you try, you will end up having to be refined in the fire. The tribulation people, saints, whatever they are, saved, unsaved. So yeah, okay, I guess that's everything. You know, people can make videos that are very meaty and very skimpy and very messed up or whatever. But if somebody gets like one thing out of it, that's great. This isn't like, you know, for everybody, I guess. But I thought it was interesting, and it's my channel, and I'm going to share things that I find and that Jesus speaks to me, and I'm encouraging you from as disciple to disciple, or I'm going to disciple, because he calls us all to be disciples, and we are saved by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We're testifying. With every testimony is testifying of miracles, signs, and wonders of Jesus Christ. If you're alive on this earth, you're a miracle. It's a sign, it's a wonder. So it happens all the time. It happens every day. And we testify to those things. It doesn't have to be your testimony as in that definition of, oh, well, I grew up, I was born, then I grew up, and then this happened, that happened. That's not the only definition of a testimony. Testimony is everyday stuff. Oh, I was reading the Bible and I learned this. That's a testimony. And yeah, so testimonies are like discipling, in my opinion. Discipling is like teaching and provoking people to emulate and provoking people to seek Jesus. And yeah. Okay. Love you guys. Bye.